Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. In this video, we're going to be looking at the B section to Crossing Pirates Cove. B sections are always the weakest, just like the second movements are and the symphonies, right? Like the middle child, they just don't get enough time. They don't get enough attention. And in this B section specifically, it gives a lot of orchestras trouble, more than most, because it's a different tempo, different tonality, not just different key, a different tonality, right? So if we move from A Phrygian with the B flats to A minor to A major, it's all A. We didn't move to a new house here. We just painted the house a different color. It's not a new key, it's just a new tonality. So the first idea I want to give you is to play with a metronome. I'm not a huge fan of the metronome thing for large ensemble practice and concert music, but it has its uses. You can get off the podium for one, but here groups play too slowly. And there's a ritardando from measure 56 to 66. I'm not great at math, but I think that's 10 measures. And a lot of groups start at 132 to 100. That's a 3 to 4 tempo relationship, by the way. And a pro tip, when you're changing tempos, always recognize that ratio, that relationship. That's roughly 3 beats per minute per measure. And that's difficult because most people can't detect 3 beat per minute tempo changes. I just read a study on this not too long ago, but I think it's less than 20% of the population that can detect a change at that level. And you have to do it 10 times. So every measure, 3 beats per minute. And if your tempo change is linear, that's really hard. So take the B theme from 66 and learn it at 100 first. Put a metronome on and stick to it until they get a feel for it. And then practice the ritardando. It's harder than it looks, all right? But if you know where you're going, it's easier to learn how to get there. So if you practice that section and really get a feel for the tempo before you work out the tempo change, it's really gonna help. Okay, there's a way to cheat, and it's to find a different ratio, okay? There's no rule that says you have to slow down from 132 to 100. You could slow down from 132 to 50 and then double that tempo, and that might work better, right? So what you do is you slow down even more, and then you accelerate here at 66 to 100 to 104. So if your group really likes to slow down even more and you can't really make those 3 beat per minute increments, that might work better for your ensemble. The other issue with the B section here is pitch, because we're going to be in A major, and a lot of times we can get pitch errors. In the teaching companion, there are 5 chromatic exercises to get the students thinking about chromaticism in relation to the open strings, which is an easier skill. It's an easier skill to relate chromatic fingerings to open strings than it is between 2 fingered notes, because the open strings should anchor their ears to something that's in tune, provided that their strings are in tune. Tuning between fingers relies on both fingers being in tune. With the open string, it gets them more comfortable with the left hand technique, but they also need to hear the change from minor or Phrygian with the viola thing and major. And for that, they need to spend more time in the section and listen. Now, there's no orchestra police, at least not in my state yet, but if you don't spend equal amounts of time on A and B themes, nobody's going to arrest you. But they should. Seriously. But please consider spending more time on the B theme to get your students comfortable with the pitch and the tonality. Okay, I spent a lot of time talking about the transition into the B theme. Let's talk about the transition back to the A theme. And this is going to be a lot easier because let's face it, if you didn't take my advice and you spent way more time on the A theme, and I'm not making fun of you because trust me, I don't even take my own advice because it's not always practical, but they already know the tempo for the A theme. So the challenge of making a natural transition, and we need to try to do it in the same way every time, but the easiest way to achieve this is, that's right, establishing a tempo relationship, which is probably going to be 3-to-1. So we slow down the tempo to where the quarter notes are eventually going to be the dotted half note in the faster tempo. And this is much easier because we're using the literal way that this is written and not just using the cheater way in the tempi that are much further apart, assuming that we started from 100 beats per minute and not playing too slowly. Okay, in my last video, I'm going to be going over common problems, and I hope to see you then.